lost private. We're in Normandy.
Thanks for checking in here at the We're Not Lost Private podcast. We appreciate all your support. But do you know how else you can support us? By signing up at Patreon. For $3 a month, you'll have access to all of our episodes, plus access to all kinds of bonus material, like our quarterly newsletter, photographs, and official paperwork, and research that goes into each and every show. You can follow the pod on a multitude of platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, pretty much anywhere you catch your pods. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 54 of the We're Not Lost Private podcast, and I am proud to welcome two titans of World War II history, and I know they'll both blush when I say things like that. Reg has been on recently. In fact, he was on episode 53, where we did, as everybody is fond of telling me, they love the title of The Big Bulge Show. And of course, everybody who follows me knows my affinity for the gentleman at the bottom of the screen, Paul Woodadge, owner, proprietor of the fantastic World War II TV. And if you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, please waste no time. There is a topic on there for you. I have never seen a World War II channel with as an expansive topic listing as Woody's, and if you've got an interest, he's probably got a show about it. But
I got a question for you, Paul. Sorry to interrupt you, Joe, but
go.
Paul, is there any topic that you haven't handled yet on World War II TV?
A lot, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've never touched the Winter War, Finland. I've barely got into Yugoslavia in World War II because I can't find the guests. There's one big one I can't think that annoyed me the other day that I thought of and I haven't covered it before that'll come to me later on. But yeah, they're the two big ones. Finland. There's something else, but it'll come to me later. There's some really big mega campaign that we haven't touched at all. But we have covered a lot, and I'll be having my guest from the 40th different country in a few weeks' time, which is crazy. From Iceland. So, I try and bring people in from around the world to get those perspectives. But yeah, they're the single biggest question I get, or the most common question is, but you must be running out of subjects. You go, no, just
impossible.
No.
There's just so much there. And for everybody who's listening and watching, this is going to be kind of a roundtable free-for-all. This is not any particular topic. When I messaged the guys, it was Reg's behest. I think we were either before or after we finished 53, and you're like, yeah, we should probably get Woody and just have the three of us just roundtabling it. And I've seen Woody do this before on his channel, whether it's talking historiography or a particular topic, having a roundtable of very highly educated and on the subject guests, and how much.
So you couldn't find those, so you invited me and Reg instead.
Right. I'm scraping the bottom of the
He ran out of topics, Woody. He ran out of topics.
As Wild Bill would say, I had to go and get a couple of scallywags on here to do the show. Hey, there we go. Now you got your back screen.
I got my back found how to work it.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a bit of a free-for-all. I hope everybody will stick with us. Before we went on, we were talking about how long we've known each other, which is pretty interesting. And you've done some maths, haven't you, Woody? You were checking it out.
Reg and I, it's pushing 20 years. You and I, Joe, it's got to be a decade, isn't it?
Yeah, at least a decade, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at that point now where I forget how I met people. I forget when I met people. I just know I know them. People say, when did we meet? I don't know. There's some people I haven't actually met that I feel I've met because I've spoken so much online, so it's, yeah. I'm middle-aged, I'm older than you two. I get very forgetful.
Paul, don't you miss that? You've been in the field for a long time before you started doing World War II TV. Don't you miss the interaction with the families, the veterans, and all these people that you used to meet on your tours? I mean, because
not really. No, I mean, I do it enough to just keep my hand in, and the tours I do, I really enjoy. But I've just, you and I talked about that before, Rich. I've just become a little bit cynical about the way Normandy has gone into a big World War II Disneyland. I don't know half the younger guides anymore. Some of them have died. Some of them have moved on. The older ones, and I couldn't do the schlep. I call it. I don't mean that with any negativity. My friends do it. Mag does it all the time, but I just couldn't do that 130 times a year, going around to
No.
San Margolese in the morning, Utah, and then so by doing it little sparingly, I really enjoy it when I do it. And then what I do to compensate for the lack of meeting people in the flesh is I make sure that when historians come to Normandy, we do an evening of beers in the pub. I meet them on site. I do that kind of thing so that I can, talk to people and keep up to date with not the gossip, so to speak, but kind of the what's going on with you, what's going on in the world of history, because as I'm sure we'll talk about, it's very easy to get left behind with the latest thinking. If you haven't read the latest book or seen the latest thinking, suddenly you're yesterday's person talking about the stuff, books that are written 40 years ago that have been debunked, improved upon. So I don't miss the guiding because I compensate for it in other ways.
Yeah, yeah, but I didn't specifically refer to the guiding, but to meeting the people, the vets and their families, hearing their personal stories, taking them to the locations where stuff happened. I mean, these specific moments, because the three of us, we do have a lot of friends in common, and
Yeah.
we used to have a lot of veteran friends in common as well. Unfortunately, most of them have gone by now. But I because I remember when Paul and I started, I think the first thing we did was the special plaque for Don Burgett in Normandy.
Yeah, that was early. Yeah.
That was very, very early. Don was there. I mean, his grandson was there, and take him to the locations where he could tell his stories. I mean, moments like that. You knew Don, Joe.
Mhm.
I mean,
I mean, I
these were
don't
great moments.
because I'm going to use a weird analogy, right? It would be like asking Pele, the football player, like 20 years after he retired, do you miss football? You go, but I did 3 World Cups. I like you two. What I did meeting veterans and their families was in the golden years. It was in
Yeah,
the best. We three of us
I agree. I agree.
straddle
Yeah.
the best of the eras. We were there when the veterans were coming out. And I don't mean the generals and the colonels who were coming in the 60s, who were often inflating their stories and trying to put the blame for things that didn't go so well on other people. We were there with the honest Joes, the PFCs, the privates, the corporals, who just told us what they did, didn't usually embellish. They just were humble. And now we're in the era of the young historians using all the digital archives and all that. So I don't miss it because my memories of it are so good. I can't, it's like a mic drop moment. I didn't walk away from it as such. The veterans that we knew died and they stopped coming. I mean, it's so, I've no longer got, I think, well, maybe one or two World War II veterans that I've got close to who are still around. All the others have gone. I'm George Mullins comes to mind, but they've gone. So no, I don't. We were really lucky. We were
Yeah, I know.
really lucky.
Yeah,
We
that was
We
worked
didn't
hard.
quite realize it at the moment, right?
No.
Yeah.
We realize it now.
I
How
realized what a
lucky we
turning
were.
point we reached when, especially like all of my close personal friends, like you said, Woody, that they passed away. To me, that took a bit of fire out of me for a while, where I tried to figure out like what's my role in all this. I was still I had been guiding. I had just started guiding. I'm much more of a neophyte in the guiding world than the two of you. You guys have been doing it for way more longer than I have. But to me, that took a lot of fire out of me. But it also ignited the desire to tell their stories more.
Excellent. Yeah.
Mm.
But I do miss those days. You're right, Woody. That's kind of the golden age. They were being feted properly. They weren't anonymously traveling across, which has its good and bad points, obviously. Sometimes it was hard to get a word in edgewise because everybody wanted a piece of them. I
Yep.
remember when we went out with Don, you and I, Paul, and we went over to Ravannaville, and we just sat there with Don talking about everything from cow pies and where the Germans were and the fighting there, and then the missing ammunition cart and all the other things, and then him seeing letters from me or the letters I had received from writing like Earl Borchers or Justo Correa, his buddies, and him tearing up while we look at a map, and the both of us, me shielding him from everybody because he didn't want everybody seeing him emotional. And those are things that stay with me forever. Those little personal interactions that we've all three of us
I'll
have
just
had.
stay there. I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
Go. But that
No,
to
I
me,
mean, I agree. I mean,
that was
and
a beautiful moment, and you helped make that happen. You and Paul Clifford, and
Right.
obviously Renee, who was there with
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah, because you just bring up a story being in Normandy, Ravenville with Don Burgett, and Paul and I, we were there too with his grandson, and Don told a story about the ditch on both sides, the entranceway to Marmion Farm, and the cat walks up in the tree, and he told the story of Justo Correa,
Yep.
right? How Don and I think it was a guy called Liddell or Little or Harold Phillips, I can't remember, who built like a 2-foot wall with stones on the roadside of the ditch to hide. And then that German came around with his Schmeisser and sprayed the ditch, and Korea's helmet got pierced.
Yep.
And bullet moved around between the liner and the pot and sit out. And that whole story, well, we were standing there. I think, Paul, you were there with it.
yeah.
Yeah, and his grandson Jake, and yes, his grandpa. Where exactly did you build that wall? And Don said, well, it was right over there on
Just
that
there.
side of that's of the road. So he jumped in wearing shorts. There were
Yeah.
bushes of thorns
Briars.
growing out of that ditch, and he jumps in there, and he comes up with 2 stones. He found a wall, and I just had to pick it up at like.
Well, I've got mine. Let me
Yeah,
carry
I've got
on.
one
When I
too.
get mine.
Mine's downstairs. Yeah. What's amazing about that story is I too was an idiot and jumped into the ditch and I was wearing pants, thankfully, but was getting stuck by those briars. Yep.
I wrote on mine. Look.
I've got one down in the garage.
It's mirrored, but it
My
says
other
this
stuff.
is Don Baguette's wall. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are priceless. Like,
Yeah.
and like you said, it was a golden age because like guys with like Don who were very tech savvy was on the internet. You could shoot emails back and forth with him or call him on the phone and talk about stuff, and he was always happy to sit there and chat about things. I mean, again, golden age, perfectly put.
Absolutely.
You
Good
know,
memories, and
yeah.
that's what makes being, in my case, taking people to these sites again and telling his story or their stories makes me often think back of these great moments we had. I'm getting a little bit nostalgic.
Yeah.
As we're after the tour on my way home, I just all these memories come back, like we're bringing them up right now, and I haven't thought about this for about a year or something like that. But just and that's these are great moments here too.
What's funny is that book. I had a little notebook, and it was in the military in the Marine Corps we call them green monsters. There's a little green GI issue notebooks, and I had a cover made for mine in Afghanistan out of camo pattern, and I had the letters tucked into it. So as Don was talking, I'm sitting there taking notes, and he sees these letters. That book has not changed that configuration since that time. It just sits there, and I open it up, and every time I see the letters there, I'll smile because I remember just that moment with Don, where it was just two guys that were just standing there talking and had a knowledge of his friends.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to talk. I'll be upfront. I didn't get to talk to Justo because he had passed. But I kept writing his widow, Alicia, who's a lovely lady. And Don really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't.
And
you weren't just.
we were able to kind of push back a bit. We were respectful, but we also sort of stood our ground and questioned things and said, "Are you sure about that? Could that not have been further down the road?" And because I think that they came to appreciate the fact that we were like that. I mean, if we're talking about Don Baguette,
he could get feisty.
I was never able to convince him that his memory of where he was wounded in Bloody Gulch was from my opinion, the incorrect place. But we did get him to change his location at Dead Man's Corner. And so, you know, and it was Sean, my friend Sean Claxton. We said, we sort of had half a victory, you know. He said, no, I really want, I fully, you know, appreciate your work on Dead Man's Corner. You're right. I think I was there now, not there.
It's
But he
because
wouldn't have it about Bloody Gulch, you
the
know.
same thing when
But who
well,
cares? It doesn't
yeah.
matter. You know, he didn't treat me as if I'm an idiot for thinking something different. And I didn't say he was wrong. I just said I'd like to find a way where our stories can somehow meet in the middle, because your emotional connection to these locations, your vivid memories of the visceral nature of it, I'm not going to question that. I'm just saying it wasn't this hedgerow. You know, I'm just being a bit geeky, you know. And when the veterans come over these days, there isn't the time for the lengthy engagements anymore. There's even more people around trying to speak to them, they're older, and even just the physical difficulty of leaning down to someone in a wheelchair feels uncomfortable to me. I mean, you can kind of crouch down and try and get level with them. But I think in our era, when you're just at a pub, or you're walking across that field, or in your case, Reg, you're walking across through those woods there towards a line of foxholes, you're on a level with them, and it's the engagement can be forthright and honest, and they respect you, and they'll tell you when they think you're wrong. And I would feel confident enough to say, I'm not sure. I think you're remembering this as a January event, when I think this is a December, whatever it would be, you know?
Yeah, I think it depended on the vet too. You know, Don obviously could be very feisty about his recollections, which
That's an understatement.
I truly appreciate. So was Malark. I mean, you had your moments with Malark. I always found Bill, Wild Bill, if I could get him away from other people, I could get him to lean in a little bit more about the truth. I mean, I always jokingly, to his face, called him the Captain Jack Sparrow of Easy Company, because he was performing to the crowd a lot of times.
Yeah.
But you know, like what we used the Gerald Lorraine Jeep jockey thing, right? It didn't take me long to whittle him down to, no, I missed that guy when I first shot him. Lorraine drilled him, but he didn't kill him. I finished him off, though. You know, like there was he didn't want to disappoint people. He's a different circumstance than a lot of the other vets.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a public perception that he has got to deal with, and he doesn't want to make the HBO people look bad. These are things he told me. Like, I don't want to make them look bad. Their storytelling. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But you know, I cherish all those interactions. But you can't,
even if they were embarrassing sometimes. I mean,
well, if I knew there was going to be something that was going to be contentious, I would wait till I had a moment.
Yeah.
They weren't around other people. I mean, but like you said, there was now it's such a schedule, right? These guys, when they come, first of all, most of them are infirm. They need wheelchairs and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a minder there with them, which is cool. You got to have somebody keep an eye on them at this point.
Good job. Yep.
They're century vets. Yeah, they're in the hundreds. A lot of times they're very, very, very late 90s, and but they have a schedule, like they are wedded to. That makes it, like you said, very difficult to have some of these conversations with them.
And I think the benefit we had is that we didn't take the respect we had for them to the point where we put them on such a high pedestal. They weren't just human beings like us, you know. We could see their faults. We could see how some of them, as you said there, would slightly inflate stories. I remember Harley Reynolds, 16th Infantry, Omaha Beach, who would come to Normandy for like 3 weeks in the summer, and when I was taking groups there, I'd be there at different times of day depending on the tide. So I would say, I'd message him, email him, say, I'm going to be there 11 o'clock today. And he'd wander down from where he was staying. He'd meet me at the E1 draw. Or he'd say, I can't come today because I'm hungover. I can't come today because I've got to go to a ceremony, whatever it would be. But for me, the later in the day it was, the more he'd had Calvados and cider. And there was one particular time, and I was there like 4 o'clock, and I had a kind of a pressing engagement to get to the cemetery before it closed, and he was on a full roll telling a story. But he was in kind of show mode for when he talks to his book groups in Florida. And I was going, it's me now. Harley, it's not 6 tanks, is it? It's one, isn't it? Yeah, it's one. Yeah, it's one. And the 30 Germans, it was 6, wasn't it? Yeah, no, it was 6. And it was just banter back. But I was comfortable enough to kind of rib him a bit, which would then get the best stories back. And it was sort of like a double act. And I think I had this discussion with Amanda from Best Defense Foundation. She was on my channel 3 or 4 days ago. We don't want to put those guys so high up that we lose sight of the fact they were human beings with flaws and they didn't necessarily remember everything right and they had axes to grind against some of their buddies. And others they would forgive things for, all that kind of stuff. They're just human. They're like us.
I remember going to the Reading Air Show, and we were I was just walking by, and there's Bud Lamel just sitting there. And I walk over. I know exactly who he is. I mean, you've seen him on the History Channel or whatever the documentary is talking about Point du Hoc and all that. And I just sat down with him, and we just BS for about an hour until somebody came and retrieved him. That was the worst part about it. And I actually had moved him over into the shade. So whoever it was that was supposed to come and retrieve him was pissed off because he had moved. Well, they left him in the sun. And the Reading Air Show, you get one of 2 weathers there. You're either getting rained on or it's 100 degrees out with no shade. So I moved him over into the shade near the hangar, and we just sat there like 2 birds on a wire, just watching, like people watching and just talking. And I talked with him about Jack Kuhn quite a bit. Just 2 guys just having a conversation. And then he's like, well, what do you do for a living? And, he told me, I'm a lawyer in Jersey and yada, yada, yada. I'm a tri-stater myself. I'm a New York guy, and then I would periodically call him, like those phone calls, those interactions, like they're treasured memories, like getting a postcard from Dick Winters or, spending time with you insert vet name here, right? That you had a meaningful interaction with. And I think those are formative experiences for us as both as guides and podcasters and YouTube creators that help us parse.
We're the last generation who was fortunate to have that experience in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, meaningful, extended experiences with these guys.
Now they're bringing them over. They have a very tight schedule from one ceremony to another wreath-laying to another reception to another dinner party.
Plus, they tire out early.
Yeah.
I remember the first Easy Company reunion I went to, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're still drinking in the hospitality room, and I'm like, and they want me to go gun for gun with them, and I am trying to mentally take notes because you don't want to sit there with a notepad, but you're mentally trying to have a notepad going in your head, and then the next morning waking up and going, what the hell did they just say last night? I'm trying to piece together this whole thing, and like that, back then they could go all
Oh
night.
God, yeah,
And
yeah. They were never the first to bed back then, were they? It'd be us young people going, are they? Surely one of them's going to tire soon, and you go, no.
Oh yeah, and I always got the, come on, Marine, let's go. Like you can if you can't hang with us, you need to pack it in. They would pull that card quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, yeah, golden age for sure.
Now, the easiest tour with a veteran that I ever did must have been, I think, 2009, around that time, with George Koski-Mackie. I mean,
Coach K.
The godfather of the 101st. He was General Taylor's radio guy. He in the 70s, he sent out 10,000 questionnaires to the veterans with questions about every campaign they were in and kind of stuff. And he used just 1/10, like 10% of everything that he received back. He used 10% of that to write his 3 books. And he donated all the rest to Camp Carlisle. And kind of stuff. But he has written these fantastic books based on first-eye accounts, the guys that were there. And he was sitting in my minibus, and all I needed to do was say, hey, George, remember the story of Joe Madonna? Oh yeah, he got shot in the head. I said, that was over there.
Yep.
So I just had to drive and point. I didn't have to tell the story because he knew the story, right? That was so fun. And then you just hop in and off the bus, and these were great moments. Unforgettable.
Loved Coach K too. Like Don, he was very tech savvy. You could email him, and he would respond right away. And he was very much, I think, a mentor to a lot of us
Mm.
When it came to
And yet my memory of him is of him being in tears. It's weird how I didn't spend much time with him. And I forget which vets he was on a tour coming over. It was one of the Chris Anderson ones with Steph. And it was
out.
in the lobby of the Churchill Hotel in Bayeux. And he just kind of politely, discreetly, but very emotionally kind of lost it, and went on a bit of a rant about the fact there were other units in the 101st Airborne. What about the 501st? What about the 502s? And I'm along with someone else. I can't remember who it was now. We're trying to console him and say that, we get it. And, and then he cheered up, and the other vets kind of brought him back in and said, for goodness sake, you're the legend here. It's just that people keep asking us questions. Push your way to the front, kind of thing, And he did, but it's interesting that we have, even though we knew some of the same guys, and again comes back to my point about the fact they were human beings. None of us spent weeks and weeks and weeks with them. So whatever slice of what we saw might not be the full person. And why would it be the first person? But you put it all together and you start to get an idea. Because Bill Garnier would speak differently to me because he'd always do the limey thing. I mean, he called me the limey bastard. That's what he always referred to me as. So there was always, he had to get in the little dig about Britain first. And then we'd overcome that.
I was always kid or scallywag.
So, that slight different side of themselves that they presented. But the thing is that has helped us improve our tools of understanding whatever the truth is in history. And I do not believe there is a definitive truth about anything. I think when Reg stands by a foxhole and tells a story, that is a true story from the perspective of 1, 2, 3, or 4 people. And another person just down the road, down the line, might have a slightly different version of that story. There's never going to be a definitive version. But what we've learned is how to kind of analyze, compare, think what kind of mood is the person in who's telling us this story? Who is the audience he's telling us to? Has he changed the story because there's a group of school kids around and he's not using the the language, And we didn't. None of us, we never had meetings like this where he said, what skills do you take for it? We just it was on the job training. None of us had any experience before. We just leapt in to meeting World War II veterans on their battlefields. I didn't take any bloody course. I just learned everything.
Me neither.
Yeah, exactly.
On the ground.
It's something that you learn by doing it, by talking to guys, how to handle the guys, how to analyze their stories. I like to tell the people, like, listen, the stories that you'll be hearing today are the versions of the story, how they remembered it.
Yeah.
At the moment that they told me the story.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, because okay, it's your memory. After like 60 years, there's gaps in your memory, and your brain fills in these gaps. Plus, sometimes people don't want to tell it the way they remember it. And Bill Sefton wrote down his memoirs. It was my war, and this is how I want to remember it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Plus, how did they the perception of what was going on around their foxholes? And when you're a private in the foxholes, you know exactly what's going on in like a 30-yard radius around your foxhole. Yeah, but you don't have the big picture unless you're an officer. You have to deal with moments and names of towns and kind of stuff. Plus, they suffer, especially Bastogne. They were sleep deprived. They lost a high percentage of their brain capacity. There was different perception of things and interpretation of things that was going on because of that being sleep deprived. Plus, then as the years go by, the stories change. It's like you said, Paul, earlier. The fish gets bigger.
Yeah.
Being at reunions and kind of stuff. But that stuff you have to see through all that, and you always have to bear that in mind when you're listening to their stories or even reading their stories.
Yeah,
I was with a 2nd Division veteran, his family, US 2nd Division, down Saint Georges Dale in Normandy. And as you two guys know, it's often knowing when to say nothing at all. And you desperately want to probe. You know that there's a potential nugget of detail that will help you pinpoint the details of this action for your head, but you know for them it was an intensely traumatic moment. So you're like, I'm not gonna walk into that claymore.
Nope.
And this particular bit, it was Purple Heart Alley, as they call up towards Hill 192. And the veteran, I forget which company he was with, but he's like, and you could see because he'd been talking about pushing up in advance and how they changed from C rations to K rations, something like that. And it was some general stuff about hedgerows and artillery. And he was all very responsive and it was coming. And then as we got closer and closer to the hill where his buddies got killed and wounded, the answers got shorter and shorter. And then and I'm asking his questions, but his family are asking questions as well. Sometimes the ones I absolutely wouldn't have asked myself. And in this particular occasion, he looked at me and he said, and I don't need to tell you what happened next. And I went, no, yeah. And they went, what happened next, Dad? Did some of your friends get killed? And I was like, no, don't.
Again,
and I completely understood why they did.
But they're going to ask that question because we can't.
Yeah.
I think,
and he just burst into tears. And one of his grandchildren sort of took him away. And then I said to the son and the daughter-in-law, the daughter and the son-in-law, whatever it was, I said, I just did like a 2-minute. What happened there was they walked up that field there, and then artillery and loads of German Fallschirmjäger guys on the top there just opened up on them, and half of them didn't live the next 2 minutes. And us being here is triggering all that. And they went, oh, we had no idea. And I said, well, no. And that was when I broke it for lunch. And it was too early for lunch. It was like 11:30. We had sandwiches with us. We'd brought in by air. And I said, well, let's break. And we went back. We actually drove back a bit. I tell you what we did. We went back to the churchyard in Saint George Dale and we matched up the Life magazine photos. And I changed the subject to something else. And then after lunch, he said, I want to go and see that field and see where my friends were killed. And I want to tell you all about what happened. And I'm like, yes. and I don't remember any of it because I was so emotionally connected to it. Like you, Joe, there's no way would I have said, can I record this? Because that would have just killed Captain Buzzkill. So I just tried to remember it all. And I realized half an hour later I'd forgotten all of it. Pretty much everything.
We had gone up to Tonawanda for a memorial unveiling, and Don came, Malarkey. And what we didn't know was Faye Tanner, Skip's fiance, and her husband were going to be there.
Wow.
Because they were unveiling a monument for Skip and for the Nylands. And it was a wonderful effort. Rick and Lisa Lewis. Vance Day brought Don. Vance used to travel with Don quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember Vance.
And when Faye showed up, there was like a hush. Everybody's like, oh my God, this is the Faye. This is Faye. And at first, you could see Don was very hesitant about it all. And he had spoken to her in previous years. Like, this was not a lady he hadn't talked to since the war. You know what I mean? He'd spoken to her in recent years. But I don't think they had been face to face in quite some time. And we had a bit of a mixer before or after the unveiling. And Don sat down with Faye and her husband. And like you said, nobody wanted to interrupt them. But for the life of me, I was so enthralled by the visual of the two of them engaged, like so emotionally engaged. But I can't remember a damn thing. And I was 4 feet away from them. And I can't remember a damn thing they said. And I don't think I want to. That was their moment. And but it was just beautiful to be there. And Reg, to your point about combat exhaustion, Woody, you and I have talked about it, like the D+2 through D+4, when we would talk to the guys. Yeah, what happened at here? I don't know, kid. I can't remember. I was walking. I was dead on my ass when I was doing.
Yeah.
When we were moving from point A to point B. I mean, those guys had already been up for several days, or at least 2 days before they launched.
Yeah.
Then to go through that massive adrenaline rush and dump, and then be dead on their ass and just not be able to recall a single thing. And people wonder why, like there's gaps in stories. Well, that's why. It's the human component to all this. It's these guys are human. You run out of gas. I mean, I experienced it myself. there is absolutely a point where you can't push your body anymore.
Yeah.
Like I remember,
Absolutely.
and you know the story, right? When was it Toy fell asleep at Breakcore and Bill thought he was dead, or was it vice versa?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was Toy fell asleep.
Yeah. It was Toy, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
And Bill basically punched him.
Yeah.
And Joe popped up and he goes, Jesus, I thought you were dead, because his head was down. He thought he had caught a round, and that was it. His buddy that he'd known for 2 years is dead, and he's just like,
Oh. But you know what? I'm gonna pat ourselves collectively on the back here. What we didn't do is try and fill up the gaps in their knowledge with conjecture.
Yeah.
And we've all got those memoirs of not so much veterans memoirs, but that person in a town who found that veteran in their town in their later life and did the book. And there's always gold in those books, but there's always, in my opinion, some absolute shite as well. And you see it in those interview questions where he says, so what do you remember about, July 44? And the guy goes, I don't know. And they'll say something like, but I suppose you were involved in this. Did you see the dead horses in the Falaise Gap or something? You would have seen them, surely. And I hate those kind of loaded questions.
Leading questions.
Where you're leading it there, and then the veteran kind of goes, well, yeah, I guess. And you go off, just, no, it's, I think one of the things I've learned, and this applies to life generally, it applies to religion, faith, politics, is it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know. If someone says, do you know what that unit was doing on that day? I don't know. No, the war diary is sketchy. We're not sure where they were, rather than going, well, yeah, you can have an opinion, but with the veterans we met, when they had gaps, I admired their honesty and saying, you know what, Paul, I don't remember that. I go, okay, that's fair enough. Let's move on to something else that you do remember. That
there are similar stories about like one or two veterans, and they take credit for stuff that happened or what they did during World War II. But some moments, I'm not going to give any specific names. So I'm quite sure for some guy that he wasn't the guy, but he was surrounded by people say, hey, look, what a coincidence. You had the same experience. It must have been you. Can't have been anyone else. It must be you. Of course it's you. Yes. Oh, yes, it was me. It was me. Right. But what's your reaction to that when these guys were like in their 80s, in their 90s? I mean, then I thought to myself, who am I now to bring down that story?
Yeah.
Tell him what I really think. I mean, he's a World War II veteran. He fought for free. He's one of our heroes.
Yeah.
So he's in the last stage of his life. So who am I to make that stage miserable for him?
Yeah.
I think when I got to that phase, and I think we were all very cognizant of it when it happened, I think we came to appreciate our time with them more, less about recording history and more about spending time with people we respect or our friends. And it became much more of I have limited time left with my friend, and I'm going to spend it not talking about this nonsense. We're going to talk about things that matter. I remember talking with Buck Compton quite a bit, and we spent a lot of time talking about the trial of Sirhan Sirhan, just because it was such an interesting aspect of his career that had zero to do with the war. But he absolutely enjoyed talking about it, because to him, the war was just a small piece of his life, and this was much more important in his mind in terms of things that he did across his career. And but as they aged, we call it aged out, right? As they aged out to being very cognizant of the details of their own history, it became much more of, to me, a holding on to my friends and my time with them. It became much more important than finding out how many clips of 30-06 did they have in their bandolier at this particular time, and much more of my friend wants to play cards, we're going to play cards, and have a Bailey's, because a lot of them, that's what they do.
I mean, that reminds me of walking back from the furthest down the field. In fact, we'd gone to the field beyond the field at Breckall Manor. It was Malarkey and Compton were there, and it was on whichever tour group it was on, and I was there as a local guide. The presentation's done. We've done all that, and we're walking back now. And so Don Malarkey is fielding all the questions about the Luger and the German from America, all that kind of stuff. There's the stuff that wasn't covered in the main talk. And the group are like just literally like a buzzing around him, just hanging off every word. And Don was in good form that day, particularly good form. And I'm with Buck Compton. The one time I was there at Breckel with Buck, and Buck had been doing a face for the last 20 minutes of like, I just don't want to talk about this shit anymore. I've said what I remember about it. Can we not just go and have lunch now, kind of thing? So I started walking back with him, and we walked all the way back, talking about cows, horses, Normandy farming in the areas he'd lived at, how he would get some of his like breaks from life by going into the countryside. And he talked about working in the Sirhan thing kind of indirectly, but how important it was to take a break into nature. And a couple of the group that were buzzing around Dom, when they kind of felt he was like taking a breath, they'd kind of buzz back around me again and Buck, and they'd listen and think, oh, it's just horses. And they'd run back to Dom to try and get. And I was thinking, what I'm getting here is providing me a lot more insight into who this guy is, how he thinks, what sort of person he is, and the fact he's asking me questions about Normandy. And I said, well, these cattle, and and that's one of the greatest moments I spent with an Easy Company veteran. Yeah, the war didn't come up. And Amanda, I had on my show, I mentioned it. She worked at Pearl Harbor, the memorial there for a long time, and even more pivotal December the 7th than June the 6th in many ways, because it was the heart of the American homeland. And she knew veterans who pretty much were never asked anything about their lives except where were you on the morning of December the 7th. And these are guys who went on for another 5 years of war, and did one particular pilot she knew who went on and shot down 70 or something Japanese aircraft, flew off numerous carriers, involved in every major invasion. But everyone just wanted to know, what about December the 7th then? And that realization that they have other things to talk about that are way more important in understanding who we are as human beings than just talking about the war.
Yeah, like I had amazing moments with John Primarana. You knew Prim. And I thought like 35 minutes how to make the perfect meatballs. Right, and then actually getting a little fight over it, and then we befriended again. And she's like, but that was the cool
you can't
stuff.
mess with the Italian stallion.
You get to know the guys.
Janet Jansen used to call him the Italian stallion.
Italian stallion.
He was such a great friend of mine, and he would stay with my reenacting unit at Fort Indian Town Gap, and he loved to needle us about being a 506 reenactor group. Like somebody would yell Curry, and the whole barracks would yell Curry, and then you'd hear Geronimo in the background, because he knew he was just needling, but I grew to love that man like he was my own grandfather. You know what I mean? When he was winding down, and I knew it, he said, he sat down next to me on a bed at the barracks and said, Mooch, I don't have much time left. He goes, and when I go, I want you and the boys to come and be my pallbearers. You guys have replaced all my buddies that have gone. And he gave me his jump boots, and I wore his jump boots. They're not his World War II jump boots. They were a pair he got afterwards, but the sentiment was there. And he said, I want you to have these. And I wore them for that ceremony for his internment, and never again.
Wow.
Because he was part of our family at that point. And I mean, we heard all his stories. I used to tease the guys on a Saturday. Was it Saturday? Sunday morning, after the big party Saturday at Fort Indian Town Gap, John would do a slideshow. He'd bring his slide projector with him. We would set up a bed sheet in the barracks, and he would do his show with some of them were his photos, some of them were stock Signal Corps photos, and he would just go through it and tell his stories. And every year they were the same damn stories, the same inflection points, the same laughter in the same spots.
And there were a lot of stories.
And I loved it. Oh, he was a natural born storyteller, and I loved it. But guys, over the course of years, the crowd would thin out. And one day, not too many years before he gave me his "I don't have much time left" speech, I told the guys, I said, you better start going to John's presentation, because there's going to become a time when we don't have John anymore.
Yeah.
And you're going to regret that you didn't invest the hour or two to sit with this man and hear his stories just one more time, because that's all you're going to think about after he's gone is, I wish I could just hear him tell his stories one more freaking time. And it resonated because the last couple of slideshows he did, it was max participation. And our unit was pretty big back then for a reenacting unit. We'd have 40, 50 guys, which was fairly large for a reenacting unit. But he was a natural born showman. I mean, that's not many of the guys were like that. There were quite a few, obviously Bill, but like in your story about Buck, I always knew Buck was getting tired of talking about World War II. When he, like you, he walked up next to me and he would ask me, how's my family doing? And that's an insight into him, because he was such a devoted family man that he was concerned as a service member, because I was still serving at the time, that I wasn't spending enough time with my family. And when you sit down and you talk with Tracy and you really understand the depths of his devotion to his family, and that's one of the things I absolutely loved about him. And yeah, I mean, we could go all day doing stories like that about the guys that we absolutely love.
But I want to ask you a question, you two, is that the three of us got to know each other through the 101st Airborne with an even bigger lean towards E Company 506th. And I have a sort of a love-hate relationship with that whole thing now, because a whole cross-section of the people I know and care about, I got to know through Mark Bando's Trigger Time, and then the extended trips to Normandy, to Bastogne, the various things, World War II Foundation, this, that, the other. And yet, you know, I know you want to talk about this, Joe, you know, the things about the war that aren't talked about, the fact that, and I understand completely that Band of Brothers, like Masters of the Air, like SAS Rogue Heroes, or they're entry level drugs. They bring people into the hobby, they bring people into learning. I get that, and I treasure all my encounters with those guys. But why I don't think it quite led to the expansion of interest among the great majority of people that I thought it might have done. Do you feel we are still stuck in a little bit of a Easy Company, Omaha Beach, Pegasus Bridge, Easy Company, Omaha Beach, Pegasus Bridge, a bit of a loop?
I can only speak for myself and for what I see here in Belgium, the Bulge area, based on the people that come to visit. And I can still see the audience is getting younger and younger. And of course, it has to do, they did watch Band of Brothers, and for many, it sparked their interest in World War II. But now we have a lot of more people who are doing actually the Northern Bulge, 99th Division, 106th, 551, Parachute Infantry Battalion areas. And so I think it's still a result of what happened 25 years ago when Band came out. They're expanding their territory. They're actually going for new subjects and stories. So it's not stuck in a loop or something like you may suggest. Well, for the Bulge there is.
Okay. It's because I'm older than you. I'm middle-aged, grumpy, and cynical, and I'm stuck in that bloody loop. But Joe,
because you're behind your screen, you're doing your TV stuff. I'm out in the field. I see what's going on.
And I bow to your in-field knowledge. I mean, Joe, what do you think? Because I've seen you absolutely expand your repertoire, not with your podcast, but with your tours. And it's not saying that I'm not surprised you did do that, because it was obvious you were a Marine who started interested in the airborne stuff. But have you felt that you've had to kind of force that at some times and try and force people to eat their greens in some ways, as opposed to just, the endless Dick Winters conversations?
It's a bit situational, dependent on the folks that are on the tour. Some folks will have a great appetite to expand their knowledge beyond Band or Saving Private Ryan or what have you. And those folks, I always leave enough room in my day to add stuff in.
Right, yeah.
So if I get to talk about another parachute infantry regiment, or I get to talk about another infantry regiment, or if I get to talk about an engineer special brigade, I'm shoehorning those in. Like I absolutely love to do Sword, Juno, and Gold. Absolutely. I can't do them to the level of quality you can, but I can tell a pretty good story. What I do is I pick personalities that are involved in those particular areas, and I build out an hour-long presentation to go with it and
Mm.
paint the picture. I think a lot of it has to do with the guide. Folks will be receptive to it if you're good at your job.
Yeah, fair enough.
You're an educator, and I know you've experienced this. Reg, you've experienced this. You've suggested stops to people and taken them there, and you've blown their minds. It's happened.
I've never had a failure. I've never
absolutely
taken
loved it.
anybody to a place they didn't know about, and they're going, "Well, I don't understand why you took us there, Woody. That was crap."
Yeah.
They've always gone, "Bloody hell, that was amazing. If I'd known about that, why aren't other people going?" And I go, that's why I brought you here. But you wouldn't have heard of whatever it is. I'm trying to think of an example, Kraut Corner down near Hill 192 or whatever it would be. But now you're here, you love it. But you can't necessarily put that on your website because people will go, "What's that then?"
Yeah,
they want
I
to
won't
see
take
the
that
stuff
tour.
they
I
read
don't know
about.
any of these places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I took a small group of guys out to the Bulge, and our running theme through that was deviation. We're deviating.
Yeah.
We're going here. We're going there. We're adding stuff. I had some tent pole stops that had to be on the tour that I
Yeah.
promised. And Reg, you know how that is. You got an itinerary. It's set, but sometimes you can fit other stuff in, and it's the quality of the guide and their knowledge base that I'm not going to say sells it properly, presents it properly, and frames it properly. And I also think the folks that we get on our tours, you included, Woody, I know you only tour like once a year or twice a year, whatever you fit, are very discerning at this point. We're not
Yeah.
getting what I'll call the tourist type that come in, they want to parachute in, they want to do Breakcore Manor, they want to do Omaha, they want to visit the cemetery, boom, we're done here. Like, I would love to go in and do San Lo and a couple other places. I don't think I can get it there. You know what I mean? You've only got so much time on the ground. Some of the tentpole items you can't get around.
Yeah, in the limited amount of time that you have, and you can't leave out all the touristy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
people
But
in
what
the
I like
Bulge,
to do is
you know,
to
I can
stitch
take them.
in
Yeah,
and
but
stuff.
I can take it to, like, let's say just Bastogne. I take people on day tour in Bastogne, do all the personal stores out in the field that nobody else has, the off the beaten path tour. And these people get back home, they say like, "Hey man, I've been to Bastogne, I saw the battlefields. Oh, you see the big memorial on the hill?" No. Reg didn't take
Yeah.
us there. Did you see the tank at the main square? No, Reg didn't.
Yeah, no, we just saw these
Full-
fields.
And we just
Saw
saw
a
this
bunch of
field.
cow pies. I saw some bison. You know,
It's like you're doing a guiding tour of Paris and you don't show them the Eiffel Tower. I mean, there's some stuff that you have to show them
yeah, you can't get
in
around
that
it.
limited amount of time you have.
But it's up to you. And again, the folks we usually get are fairly discerning. We don't have we're not. I'm never going to be mistaken for the World War II Museum and Stephen Ambrose tours, and nothing. They present an excellent product. They have excellent speakers. I just got done doing a show with Leighton Hughes and John McManus, and John is absolutely phenomenal. Reg knows him. You've met him. Woody's been on your show countless times. John is just fantastic. And
One of the finest human beings I've ever met.
isn't he? He's just a great human being, a great historian and storyteller, and he brings value to the World War II Museum tours. Like he's worth the price of admission. But I'm never going to get the folks that go on the World War II Museum tour. I don't have that.
You know the
cachet.
difference, Joe, is that the three of us would never try and kid either our tour groups, our podcast content creation audience, that we're giving them everything. We're confident enough with our knowledge and to say, dudes, guys and gals, we have scratched the surface. But there are some tour companies and indeed podcasts and books that are like, this is it. This is all you need to know. You've done this now. Tick it off. File Normandy in, done. And you don't need to go back again. I would never, ever leave anyone with any idea that they've got anywhere close to understanding World War II, because the light at the end of the tunnel for me is just getting further and further away. And no matter how much I claw my way long to learn about more. I mean, just last night we did the Waziristan campaign in Northwest Frontier, 1936
Yeah.
to 1939. I went into that knowing only what I had typed in the description on the show. And at the end of it, thanks to John, I now have a huge understanding about how they use biplanes and artillery and all this kind of stuff there, how incredible it can. It was basically think of the French in Indochina, but it was the British and Indians in the Waziristan. I'm never going to carry on my learning about that because I haven't got the time, but what it's just that reminder that, there's always something else to learn. And so, when people say, well, so I've got a 6-day tour of the Duke British and Commonwealth sectors coming up in October. It's my one big tour this year. And we're doing, do Goodwood and Bluecoat, all that kind of stuff there. And people say, I already started to say, so that's it. I won't need to come back and do that sector again. I said, no, no.
We're not even going to scratch the surface.
All I will do is make you want to come back and do it again and again and again. In fact, I'm going to piss you off. I'm going to piss you off at how much of it I have to miss out. And I'm comfortable about that, and you must be the same. I mean, Reg, you're dealing with the largest ground battle in the history of the US Army.
Oh, God, yeah.
There's no way you could even get to the 10% of it would be beyond you if you did it for 50 years. Because it's just enormous.
It's enormous. And you can do these like see the bulge in 1-day tour.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna slow down the car. Please already open your window because in 5 minutes we were going to drive past the monument. So get your cameras ready, get your cell phones ready.
We'll be doing 60.
We're not going to stop, but you will have your moment.
So be ready.
Are we getting to the bitchy stage of this discussion? I think we're getting to the kind of...
not yet. I had one person who traveled with me on one of my tours and basically sent me back my itinerary list and said, we covered all this, and then for every day on that tour, everything I had added, he had added a column. And he said, this is why I loved your tour. Because you gave me all this, and then you gave me this stuff, which was not on the itinerary.
Yeah.
And those are the things I like to see.
Yeah.
And that spreads. They'll talk to friends, and I have a lot of mine are repeat customers or friends of or family members of folks that have traveled with me before. I'm sure you guys have experienced that, many times in the past. That lets me know I'm doing a good job.
And it's not just the size that you show them; it's also how you bring it. I mean, how you entertain them. Yeah. Because that's what you do. I mean, you're acting, you're telling a story. I mean, you don't feel well, but you have to, okay, listen to this. And everybody has his own style, has to develop his own style. I mean, just knowing your stuff is not good enough.
No.
At all.
Delivery is everything.
Absolutely. Because you got to grab them. You start talking to them at like 8:30 in the morning, and you stop talking to them at like 6 p.m. And every single second, they have to be looking at you, focused, and wanting to learn more. And that's a style that you need to develop yourself. What kind of somebody told me recently, I think it was a friend called Philip, says, Reg, what I like about you is first before you start you start talking, you give a person you create the context of what happened there. Yeah. Then you make it personal.
You paint the environment around it and then drill it down to this could have been my uncle and my grandfather.
Context.
Add the emotional weight to it, and then the physical danger and all the other components to the story.
Because,
but your point, I remember my wife texting me on the first tour I took over. We had 25 folks on it. It was a huge tour. And she goes, I hope you're having fun on your vacation. And she's going to be embarrassed if she hears this. And I wrote, what vacation? I am working my ass off 18 hours a day. I don't know what you're talking about.
I ran into you a couple of times in the Ardennes. You were never working your ass off.
That is a bold-faced lie. I don't believe him.
And when people say to you, when they say to me, they'll say, oh, is there no end to your knowledge? You've answered everything. I said, you just haven't pushed far enough. I can guarantee you, I'm only ever one question away from going, I don't know. You've luckily been asking questions that are in my wheelhouse. And I've deliberately skirted the ones that are complicated. Or if it's a complicated one, I answer back with a question to them.
That's a good trick.
What's the best rifle in World War II? And I go, well, by what criteria? And they go, because
which one do you think it is?
Yeah, which one do you think it is, and why?
I mean, I could quote General Patton, but I really, I'm not the expert in terms
Yeah.
of
But
determining
you know,
which is the best rifle. I mean, which one do you think? And yeah,
oh man,
flip it on them, let them mull it a
and
little bit.
you
But
have these moments. This is about like 12 years ago. I got outsmarted by an 11-year-old
Oh, we've all been there.
happens to the best of
about
us, pal.
tank parts
Yep, yep.
and models, parts manufactured by in 1937, but it is only the spring. And is it right when I tell you that? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything. I know they're green and they can fire. Come on. And it's
I
all day,
had
the
that.
longest day of touring in my entire life.
I
He
had
kept
that
Getting
with
hammering me
a
grilled
with
by
these
an 11-year-old.
questions I didn't
with an
know. So I kept,
autistic 11-year-old or 12-year-old, and I've been told in advance by the parents, look, he's functioning autistic, but he's really autistic. He may not make eye contact with you. We don't know whether he's going to communicate with you at all. But be assured he will be interested in this, but just don't necessarily expect a round of applause and a hug. And anyway, it all went very well until we got to talking about armor. And I read
About
probably
tanks.
the same kid.
same guy.
He said, "So what was Zimmerit?" And I said, "Well, that's the stuff the Germans put on the armor so that magnetic mines couldn't stick to it." He said, "Yeah, I know that.
What's it made
What's the ratio of ingredients?" And I went, "Well, there's wood chips, there's zinc alloy, and he then rattled off to me the exact breakdown. It was 60% wood chips, 30% this and that. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to bow to your knowledge on that.
Brilliant young man.
And he said to his parents, he said, I'm really
That guy
surprised he
doesn't
didn't
know
know the
shit.
answer
I
to
mean,
that.
Oh God.
And I'm like, well, I knew the basic answer. I understood. I explained its purpose, but I couldn't give you the breakdown of the chemical ratios.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Should be ashamed of myself. It's like sometimes another one I had once, and I'll let Reg talk. I completely wasn't expecting this question to come, and it was out of nowhere. And we weren't even talking about Normandy. I was talking about how doctrine had changed from North Africa to Torch, blah, 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 blah. And Montgomery came into the conversation, and then von Rundstedt and Rommel. And someone said, what's Rommel's star sign and what's Montgomery's star sign? Because the whole outcome will be dependent on their star signs. I'm going, I have no idea. So I'm then looking up and finding out whatever their birthdays were, and it turned out that I don't know. Montgomery was a Libra and Rommel was Sagittarius, let's say, right? And she went, "Well, that's it then." That's why Montgomery handed him his ass on his plate. Librans always beat Sagittarius in tactical thinking, and I'm like, okay, yep, okay.
We're gonna chalk it up to that. Sweet. All right, moving on.
Brilliant. There's a book in there, The Star Signs of the Generals and How It Affected the Outcome of Battles.
But I'm not writing it, neither are you.
No, indeed.
Come on, you wanted to get bitchy. Let's remember, this is no names dropped, just a topic. The thing I posed to you guys before we went on the air, what's a topic that you feel like doesn't get talked about enough that you absolutely love to talk about and gets kind of waysided? I know, Woody, I got some ideas. Reg, I think I might have some ideas, but
let's go with Reg first. Go on, Reg.
Yeah.
Oh, topics I like to talk about. I mean, I like.
But don't get a lot of play. You don't get asked about that, or you don't tour to there enough because it's not sexy enough or whatever.
Yeah, what I still often think is that an area that may deserve a lot more attention for the people is Hershey Forest.
Mm.
I mean, it's about an hour and 40 minutes from where I live. Some really great guys in the field down there. Volker Losner, he's one of the best in the field. He is a retired army. I think he was an officer, and he lives in Schmidt. And he knows this area like his backyard, and he has stories, the connections. But it is especially the stories of the soldiers. I mean, 9th Infantry, 28th Regiment. I mean, there's not a lot of people going that direction. There are some tours that do stop there on their way when they come from Holland and they're driving to Luxembourg. They may stop there for like 2.5 hours. and you know the area. So the countryside is so rough, it's so hilly. You can't take a bus to the very cool places in these woods on the Cull Trail or anywhere else, or to Bergstein area. So, but that's an area that I think people should explore
Mm.
uh, a little more, actually, because there's so many stories. I mean, that was the Battle of the Bulge was the largest ground battle in the history of the U.S. Army. The battle for Herzenforce was the longest.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, First Army kept sending division after division in, first trying to attack on these two corridors, the Moncho corridor and stuff, were forced into the woods, and they got butchered. I mean, they called it the meat grinder.
Mm.
But there's not a lot of tours. However, there's a few guys keeping the history alive. There's a nice little museum in Vossenack, and there's a bunch, like a dozen people, who are trying to keep the history going down there. There's a few really good guys in the field, but they're not. There's an association there. They have annual events, ceremonies, kind of stuff, but not enough people to go and learn about what happened there and see the actual places.
That's a shame
Is it
too.
because it doesn't have like a happy ending? It doesn't have that conclusion, or even like a noble ending in a defeat. In like us Brits, we love a defeat. We love,
Yeah,
Dunkirk.
you love Arnhem.
Arnhem was a defeat, but we have that nobility that comes out of it. We have that kind of defenders down at the bridge that makes it like good for a storytelling thing. Whereas the Hurtgen doesn't, for me,
No.
doesn't have that. The Hurtgen just sort of fizzles out and then is overtaken by the Ardennes and things elsewhere. No one has their finest hour there in
And
terms
the
of
Ardennes
leadership and
was
command.
a big success story as
Yeah,
well.
the Germans. It's the perfect story for an American, isn't it? In some ways, Joe, in that it starts with adversity. Like it's the act one is the aggressor is pushing the hero back. Then the middle act is finding their feet, but it ends with pushing the Germans back to Germany, kind of thing. So it has that neat, and Hurtgen has none of that.
Yeah, it's a tough story. The thing is, I was going to say, I love Monschau, by the way. It's just a beautiful little town there.
Mm.
I mean, there's some great places to go up there. I mean, you got to find the bright spots, and that's just a tough battle to go over. Like you said, it doesn't have the acts are not as distinct and uplifting at times. It's just like you said, Reg, it's a meat grinder. And there's not a lot of people, unless they have a familial connection to it, that want to go up there
Yeah.
and connect with that battle. But plus, it's a bit out of
But
the way if you're doing
you-
regular bulge stuff down. If you're doing northern shoulder, yeah, you can get up there. But if you're doing center or southern shoulder of the bulge, it's a haul. It's a haul to get up there. And you try
Yeah,
and centrally locate yourself as a guide, right? So you can
Mm.
get to as many points on the compass as possible.
Many people from the US, they want to go to see where battles were won, not where battles
Yeah.
were lost.
Yeah.
I mean, because you want to have a good feeling, a good day. You don't want to leave end the day being depressed. That's if you have the choice. You got 2 days. What are you going to do? You see the big victory in Bastogne, and you want to hear the story of the Hurtgen Forest.
Yeah.
But it needs more attention. I think
I agree.
Donald's book up there about
Oh,
the
yeah.
Battle of the Hurtgen Forest. So there's a few good books out there as well, by the way.
Yeah, there are.
Where do you want to go, or you want me to just chip my two in there?
I'll go if you want. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to go slightly different direction. The thing that I don't think gets enough discussion, it's more of a theme than a specific thing, is the international nature of World War II. Everything is still being learnt, described, shown under a flag heading.
Yeah, very
Omaha
nationalistic
is
of you.
American, Caen is British, the Hurtgen is American, the Ardennes is American, etc., etc., etc. And I, especially in these troubled times between the relationships between all our countries right now, and let's not get into that particularly, but celebrating that there are French on Sword Beach, there are Brits on Utah Beach, there are Americans on Gold Beach. You go.
The Canadians, the Bulge.
Canadians, yeah, that whole area, like in Comont, Levante, Cahagna, where you get in Normandy, where you get the dividing line between the Americans and the Brits. where you or the British crocodile tanks taking part in the attack on Brest, supporting Patton's Third Army. We're all too burdened by a nationalistic telling of World War II, and I want us to stop using those labels. Are convenient entry points, but they should be then expanded on, and that's the thing I'm the most banging on about, is reminding people that everybody was involved in everything.
That's a good subject for a new pod.
Or the Chinese contribution, the 14th Army in Burma with 80% of Slim's troops being non-white and non-English speaking, all that kind of stuff there. We're a global community now, and we need to look at it from that global point of view. And I think it needs to be accepted, for example, that if someone is standing on Purple Heart Lane, Carrington, talking about what's happening there on June the 10th, 11th, 12th, that they feel comfortable to just nudge in what was happening in Breville, 16 miles to the east on the 12th. And you can kind of bring those stories together and saying, and while this crucial little hub node of roads is being taken, the British airborne commanders are taking another little vital hub of roads 60 miles east of here, and that's what's tying it all together. And it's what you said earlier, Joe, about context, because not only are you bringing other nations into play, you're helping expand that person's knowledge and connecting the dots. As Indian Idell says on his channel, nothing happens in a vacuum. And I think we need to be comfortable talking about Omaha Beach, but relating it to gold, relating it to Utah, relating it to Operation Bagration, what the Soviets are doing, all that stuff. So that's my hope, is that we I get emails still from Americans saying, I want to come to Normandy, and I say, what do you want to see? Well, the American sector, obviously. And you go, you know where they're coming from. You kind of want to go, do you mind if I propose that we do this and we do this and we try and usually you win those battles, but I wish people would come out of it from out of their national standpoint.
Yeah, and out of their comfort zone. They want to do the touristy stuff, not to miss out.
Yeah.
I know you're a bit fear of missing out, and they're not always open for the extra because they're a little like, well, we don't know what you're trying to do or where you're going to take us. We wanted this because we noticed, we've seen photos of this, we've looked it up on the internet. I mean, and now you want to take us into a field?
Yeah.
A few miles west of Omaha? Why?
Yeah.
For Christ's sake, why?
I literally, on my first day of my tour, no matter what tour, if I'm in Normandy, it always starts with the Allies. My kickoff point is Pegasus. Then we do Sword. Then we head over to Arromanches to look at the mulberries. We do that. I love doing those, like you said, we were a coalition, and the only reason we succeeded was because we were a coalition. And we talked about the naval forces that supported Neptune, right? If you go down to look who manned those vessels, one of the first boats that was sunk off of Normandy was a Norwegian boat.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, without all of those parts, because the U.S. Navy could not support Neptune on its own, and without the Royal Navy and the Royal Canadian Navy, this falls on its ass. There is no way Overlord succeeds. And I am preaching to the converted already with this, but we know that, and that's why I cannot do, because of the nature of the tours and how much time is available and how many days are available, I cannot do the in-depth advance inland. I would love to do a battle in Normandy, but I don't have time because people want to see everything. And when you want to see everything, you can't see everything. So you do the best you can, but I am always foot stomping.
But luckily,
the Allied participation. Like when we go to the Bulge, I always try to shoehorn La Roche-en-Ardennes, the link-up point. Yeah, it was staged. I don't care. It shows the linkage. And I always talk about
the
Simpson's
Scottish
Ninth
Highlanders
Army.
and the 84th Infantry guys. Yeah.
And I always talk about Simpson's Ninth Army and how he basically was under Monty's command for the bulk of the Western European campaign, and he worked flawlessly with him.
Harmoniously.
Because both of their personalities, he could work with Monty because he knew why he was there, Simpson. And Monty knew he had a strong U.S. formation that was working for him that could be the seam with the other U.S. elements. I mean, to me, we are stronger together than we are as apart, and that story has to be told. So I don't consider this a bitchy session. I think it's an education. we're educating that some people,
I
like you
can do
said,
bitchy if you want, but
you
yeah,
can do
yeah.
bitchy, but I mean,
Oh,
you're
he
right. There
can.
is a very nationalistic flavor that comes with these tours, but it's up to the guides to propose. You have an itinerary, but I always leave room in my itineraries to add things. And a lot of times I'm adding an allied component to this because I really like
Yeah.
telling the full story. And I know you guys do too, because I have been in the field with both of you. And I've
Mm.
seen how you
And,
present.
and it's even the language we use. Is that I've definitely evolved as a tour guide, as a historian, whatever you want to call it. You know, in that I don't like those labels of biggest, bravest, turning points, pivotal, because
Key.
they all end up being not redundant, but they're reductive because there are lots of cases. I mean that you know that sure, linking up Carenton was really important, but it wasn't necessarily the most important. What's important is getting all of them, you know, and I think that ability to show humility and say that this was important, this unit fought very effectively, but they're no better or worse than a unit down the road that also fought
No,
effectively, and so on
a
and so
lot.
forth. And it's back. We've circled back to that kind of whole heroes issue and putting people
Yeah,
on a
and
pedestal.
everybody has his own favorites. I mean, everybody has his own favorites. Baston wasn't important. Oh, that was more important over there, what happened there. And that unit did much more of any importance in the battle than that unit did. And so it's because people now have more access to the internet, to other stories. Well, I leave it in the middle if these stories are true or false or made up or not. But they get all that info thrown
Yeah.
at them, and then they have to filter out the stuff that they like and say, "Oh, that was a key battle over there." While in fact, if you look at the reports and the strategic maps, probably it wasn't, or maybe it wasn't even. But you have that a lot nowadays. A lot of that stuff going on the internet, on forums, on social media. You know, wrong battle stories. They pick it up somewhere. They filter out the things they don't like, and they create a new story. Um, it kind of bothers me
Yeah.
a little bit. So once in a while.
Yeah. When you look at, I love when people come to me and they want me to qualify Breakor as this pivotal moment for Utah Beach, how knocking out that battery. And I'm like, well, we're going to Holdy today.
Mm.
Breakor did not exist in a vacuum. It was part of an overall
Yep.
artillery scheme for the Germans in Normandy to shell the beaches. It's not just Breakor getting taken out. It's other batteries as well that
Yep.
contribute to that. I mean, again, it's up to us to educate and say, qualify. And usually my start point is, I am not downplaying the bravery of the men that were involved in this action, but I am trying to contextualize what's going on here for you. And once you give them that, you're off and running as far as
But
I'm
there's
concerned.
no need to actually put a
Sometimes there
battle,
is.
a
Sometimes there
league
is.
table.
Sometimes you have and you
All
have
we have
folks
to
that are
do is
not
say,
educated enough to know that
yeah,
they've been fed pop culture history for their
yeah,
entire, we'll say, teenage lives up until adulthood, that this is blue, and that is black, and that is red. But really, it's amalgamation of colors and how it should be
yeah.
presented. And I think, it does get frustrating. We've all had it where you've had to sit there and Barney it down, right? You had to break it down into bite-sized chunks for people to understand and then contextualize things. But
Yeah, and it's not just when you talk about different units. It's also that it's not like the fact like not all the Germans were Nazis. I mean, not all the Germans were bad. Not all the Americans were great heroes. They committed crimes
Yeah.
too.
yeah,
It's not just in colors. It is a mix on every level, on unit, on behavior, on um,
warfare exists in the gray area. People
yeah,
like to make it
great.
black and white, but it exists in the gray.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
we're in an era where everything has to have like a subtitle, a label, you know, those Churchill was the greatest politician of the 20th century kind of thing, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and you can go, well, yes, there are arguments to say he was important, but here's the list of crap stuff. Here's the list of good stuff. How do you rate it? By what criteria are we measuring all this? And it's, but
I just
for
read it
those
on the
who,
internet. I just read
And
it on
all
the
of the
internet.
and so much of it is subjective. I know you were joking, pal. So much of it is subjective. I had to laugh, because Jim Holland and Al Murray did this whole series on who was the best German general, who was the best Allied general, or British general and American general. And I thought the series was brilliant. And the criteria, though, was largely subjective.
Yeah.
Did I agree with a lot of their conclusions? Sure, I did. But at the end of the day, it's a subjective exercise.
But it comes down to,
But it gets you thinking.
it's a subjective. It's like, I'm trying to sound pretentious now, but is Van Gogh's sunflowers any better than Monet's? They're different. They're trying to do different things. I don't see any value in putting a league table of generals because it doesn't. What does it achieve? What does it achieve if you put Modal at number 3 and Patton at number 8? What have we learned from that?
Look at somebody, and this is going to be Reg. You're going to be able to come in off the top rope with this. Dutch Coda, right? Hero, Omaha Beach, yada yada yada. His division gets torn up in Hurtgen, gets torn up again in the Bulge. Does that make Dutch any less of an excellent commanding general? No, there's a set of circumstances.
Yeah,
and conditions.
Good days, bad days. That reminds me of a funny veteran story. I was poodling along Omaha Beach with a group, with a veteran, and I think my veteran was a 28th division. I can't remember which way round the story was. It's so long ago. And it sounds weird, but you'd have several veterans in a month back then. Anyway, driving down there, I'm stopping at Coater's Draw because I would always do that story. I get out with my veteran, and another van, a friend of mine, Christoph, turns up with a veteran. One of us had the 29er, one of us had the 28th division gun. I genuinely can't remember which one had one. And as soon as these two saw each other, they both had the hats and the patches. They were like, hello. And I just think to myself, I hope Coater doesn't come up too much here. And of course, and the 29er was like, Dutch Coater, I would take a bullet for that guy now. I would have taken a bullet for that guy back then. He was the greatest American general officer who ever served his country. And the 28th Division guy, he was the most murderous son of a bitch I ever encountered in my time on this. We almost had to pull these two veterans apart because they're actually starting to roll their sleeves up. And I'm trying to be the balanced historian saying, well, of course, what you're getting from is the perspectives of the particular campaigns that you fought in. And if you were to stand back and look at Coater's career more objectively, you would see that he had high moments and he had low moments. But at this moment, we just decided to just split them up because it's like I was on at Anel, Gold Beach years and years ago on like June the 6th. It was the day the Queen was seeing all the veterans at Aramonte, and I was at Anel. Ended up driving my World War II military vehicle down the beach. Anyway, there's Sherwood Rangers Yeomanry veterans there, and there's Essex Yeomanry veterans there, both of which had self-propelled guns on Gold Beach, both of which were lobbing shells at the same bloody bunker that still sits there today. And the Essex guys said, we knocked it out. And the SRI guys were going, we knocked it out. And I'm just enjoying this until they turned to me and said, you're the so-called historian. Tell us who did it.
You decide.
I'm fucking doing this. If you think I'm going to try. And I just said, from my point of view, you both fired shots at it. It was a combined effort. You both did it. And they went, no, not good enough. You've got to pick a side.
We need an arbiter here.
And some whistle blew. But you want to jump in our vehicles, go down to. So I ended up getting away with it. But for a moment, I was in the because I would have pissed off everybody.
We were at another Fort Indian Town Gap story. This was when the vets were still coming in mass. And I'm standing there near the front where our charge of quarters desk is, and the door flies open, and a duffel bag flies in and hits the stairway. And Jack Agnew comes in like a hurricane. And Jack looks at me and goes, Captain, because I was the captain at the time, he says, they put me over in the barracks with the cowards. I'm like, what are you talking about, Jack? He goes, those 28th guys that ran, they put me in the barracks with those guys. Ooh, and I'm like, he's like, can I stay with you guys? I'm like, of course, Jack. But, I don't know what happened in their barracks to precipitate that. But God, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because, Jack was just the guy was a fireball. And he whipped out one time. I asked him to sign the picture, Reg. And he goes, he looks at me and he goes,
we're on the brick pile?
Yeah, he says, I hate this fucking picture and I hate signing it. And then And then he signs it, and then he takes a bottle of Jameson out of his kit bag, and he looks at me and he goes, "Captain, you don't have a hair on your ass if you don't help me finish this bottle tonight."
Wow.
I'm like, "Oh, it's gonna be a long friggin' night tonight."
Every time I would bump
it.
in to Jack Port, Utah Beach veteran, not the first couple of times, he didn't know me then, but I bump into him every year, a couple of events here and there. Never spent ages with him, but we'd always just have a quick chat. And he'd always shout to me, knowing I'm a limey, "You guys got con yet?" And after like 5 years of whatever, I finally felt bold enough to shout back, "You guys got San Lo yet?"
Oh, man.
And he looked at me, and his first reaction was like, "You," and then he was like, then he smiled and he went, "Gotcha." And it was just good-natured ribbing, but I would always walk away from that, "You guys got con yet?" Because that was the battle my great uncle was in, so I got a little bit of a personal grudge against that. And Jack was only doing it. Well, part of it was to be funny, and part of it was because he genuinely believed the British weren't as good as the Americans, which I don't have a problem with because he's a veteran. I don't have a problem with a veteran saying my company was better than that company. I would be surprised if they didn't say that.
No, we were terrible.
Yeah, we were
the worst company in the United States Army. Nobody says that.
But yeah, that was fun. Those funny moments.
Well, boys, we've been going on for about an hour and a half. Anybody got any saved rounds? Any last items?
What I was just thinking while listening to you guys, because we agreed not to set a specific topic, just to get talk and see what happens. And ultimately, it turned out that we've been talking almost most of the time about what we love the most or who we love the most, and that were the veterans.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your first question, Joe, about, well, Reg, you asked me, do I miss it? I've only rattled off, I don't know, 5% of my veteran funny stories repertoires,
I haven't even started.
Yeah, I've got all those stories, and I love it, and the younger guys here in Normandy, when they just have to kind of keep passing me Guinnesses across the table, and make like batteries for the Duracell bunny, and I just keep on telling these stories. And I always end them with a caveat of, and you can believe them or not believe them, they're as they were told to me, they just fill out and flesh out some of these people, and yeah, treasured memories. But I think it's important that we all of us know younger people who are carrying on the torch. All of us will have to be extra, especially supportive of the people who won't have the opportunities to meet the veterans. Mm-hmm. They have the advantages of having aerial photos and more. I just got an email this week. There's a whole new U.S. Army archive gone online of record. Fantastic. All that stuff, fantastic. They'll have access to stuff we couldn't have dreamed of 30 years ago. Yep. But they can't replace you having Jack Agnew tap on your barrack block door. They can't replace Reg walking across the foxholes with Amos Almeida or Tony Lewin or George Kay. So we just have to somehow share those stories in a non-arrogant.
Yeah, because that's the other thing, because we're all getting older and uglier. Well, I'm just getting older.
I'm getting more beautiful. I don't know what you're talking about, pal.
Yeah, but yeah, when you look behind you, there's basically nothing or no one who has that same, like, just a few guys. I mean, there's many of them in the field now, but they've never met these veterans. They never got their story. But once we're gone or stop doing this, these stories should kept being told.
Yeah. And we got them.
Find a way to pass them on or educate or train people or whatever. And but there's a lot of people in the field that there's even a lot more in Normandy. They come and they go, like, everywhere. And what I often see with these new guys showing up is they do. There's one thing they're all missing, and that's passion.
Yeah.
This is not something that when you're like in your mid-20s says, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my life. Well, hey, let's become a battlefield guide, or let's take some people. No, if you don't have that passion for the history, you can't do it well enough, I think.
And it's not, we're talking today about the very best bits of our jobs, the meeting veterans. There's the other tours that you can't wait
until episode 2 and 3. We're going to go into the dirty stuff. We've kept it
some
And the days
nightmare
when
stuff.
it rains all fucking day, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and you know,
Just
I mean,
some
I'll
nightmares.
share
Doesn't he
one
ever
with
shut
you.
up? Yep.
I've had the conversation with other guides of my age group about, I mean, I'm not guiding much now. At what point do you take a spare pair of trousers out in a van in case you shit yourself? Because a guide in Normandy shit themselves on a tour. Yeah, they're walking to WN60. They thought it was a fart. It wasn't a fart. And they had to back off to their van, and they found a pair of waterproof trousers, and they had to kind of discard their other things and carry. So we had a serious conversation, like, do we get to the point where we have that in the back, in case, you know?
Well, we're getting older, so
people-
ultimately, yes.
Yeah.
Depends,
people would
man.
say
Just
to
wear
me-
adult diapers and be done with it.
Yeah, people would say to me, so Paul, the weather forecast is really bad for the next 2 or 3 days. I said, yeah, it's really bad for the next 2 or 3 days. Lots of rain. And they go, what? So what's your plan B for when it's raining? I said, it's exactly the same as plan A, but we get wet.
Do you remember when I sent you that note and it said, here's some stuff you should pack before you leave? And it says rain gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, yeah, there's some nightmare scenario stuff. Like I had one client whose elderly parents had a medical emergency. Found out the evening prior. I had to drive the person to a train station to get them down to Paris, to get them on a flight, help them arrange the flight. There's just some nightmare stuff. I remember running into George Luz, and I think you were there with us, Reg, when he told us he had one client that broke an ankle.
Yes.
He had to drive the individual out to a clinic to get looked at because there's no hospital in the area. I mean, there's all of these, or one that forgot their medication and there's no real way to get the medication there. There's some nightmare fuel stuff for guides. I'm sure we have all these.
Yeah, and
examples.
even with the veterans, I remember 2008 with Forrest Guth. That was his last trip. He was on tour with Larry for doing Larry Alexander for the book, and I did it with you too. Well, they were no.
Yeah, I did 2 or 3 days with them. Yeah,
I think Larry had a car accident and
Carrington Square. Yeah,
that
one
hurt his
day I
wrist or
wasn't
something.
there. I let them on their loose for a few hours. I had to go back and do something, and they had a little bump in Place de République in Carrington, and yeah.
And poor
Yeah, and then
Forrest.
Forrest had hurt his wrist and kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and he
And it
was
was after
worn out.
Harriet
Harriet had just
and
passed.
he had
and,
been sick, and yeah.
Yeah, so but actually, ultimately the trip turned out well for them, and I remember even sitting because we were doing the work for the book, with Forrest, taking him to the specific locations. But there's a lot of people who wanted to join the group, to meet him. I said, listen, we're working, but let's get together in the evening. We can have
That's what we did.
dinner together. So that's how we do it. So you can meet him, whatever, spend time with him. So that's what happened. And that evening we were sitting, we were having like spaghetti meatballs at the Leo Wagon restaurant before it was rebuilt. And Forrest was sitting right next to me. We had about like 12 people on the table. And suddenly we were talking. There's this guitar playing, like flamenco-ish kind of showing up at our table singing songs. He was kind of like disturbing kind of and singing all these kind of, and he finished his song like, and he goes to the table like, does anyone have a request, a special song you want me to play? And Forrest goes to say, he said, I got one. He says, can you play Far Away? And he goes like, well, sir, I don't believe I do know that song. She said, no, Far Away.
God bless Forrest. I love that guy.
Love
Him
it.
and Harriet. Man, what a power couple.
All right, guys. Hey, it's been pretty cool catching up a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think we ought to schedule a part 2. A part
Hey,
2.
absolutely.
it's entirely up to
So
you
we
guys
have
and your
to-
schedule. I'll be
We
glad
have
to
to
do
build up the dirtiness. Like, lay an extra layer every time.
Yeah.
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 I think if we just stay on the right side of telling vet stories, we'll be in good shape. These will be winners.
But there will be people in a weird way that will be kind of jealous. I mean, I remember that again, Reg, particularly that when Forrest was over, and that was all when the Major Dick Winters website and the Wild Bill Garnier website forums are very active, and people were saying, "Oh, I'm there on the Tuesday. Can I meet up with you for some of the day?" And I'm there on the Wednesday, and I'm going, "Well, we can't." And I would get these, and well, you're just hogging these veterans for your. And I said, "No, he's here to help Larry do a book, and And again, I'm working, sure, it's going to be a great time. I'm not going to say it isn't a great time. And we did the same thing. We did an evening with them, but, I'm getting insulting emails from, and after that, when I realized that, sorry, going another story, we could just save this for next time, but the last trip Don Malarkey made, when we now know Joe, he was starting to fade a little bit, and he was particularly kind of argumentative that time. And
Don Spicy? No way.
yeah, and we'd parked up at the guys wanted to do a bit of filming at Purple Heart Lane, even though E Company weren't there. We kind of talked about going off south around the floods, blah blah blah, and we're going off to the approach into Carrington. I took Don aside and I said, when we're going to the next location, Don, you've got to try and cast your mind back to less houses on the left and right. Try and, contextualize it, and, because it is the right place, but there'll be bits about it that will look different and bits about it that will be familiar, but just try and kind of embrace the fact that it has been, whatever it had been at this point, 75 years. And he's like, oh, good. Yeah, sure, would it? Yeah, sure. I'll bear that in mind. We drive up. It's been 2 minutes, right? We've just driven around the corner. We get there. And I start saying, so this is where this isn't the place. None of these houses were here. I'm like, I just, didn't we just have this conversation? And the whole of the time there, he's like, no, this isn't it. This isn't the place. And I'm going, no, it is the place. It is the place. You don't get a medal for spending those days with them. And again, it all comes back to the fact he was there and I wasn't there. So I now feel like I'm the bad guy, because I'm trying to go, well, no, but this is the place. Just that house wasn't, and this bit was different, and that bus stop wasn't there, and no, that lady wasn't there, and
that cow wasn't there.
I remember one of the first veterans I met, and I kind of guided. This was before I started doing all this like officially and kind of stuff. I was kind of like 20 years old. I can't even remember the guy's name, but I do know that he was in the 9th Armored Division. And he sent me this tank battalion, so I wanted to be very well prepared. So I did my research, I read all the books, and I traveled the route I was going to take with him, the towns he was in. So ultimately, there's my big day. This is my moment. This is my Champions League final. I need to do this. So I take that family and I printed, a lot of photos of the town to see. So I was taken to the first place, stop and see, look at this photo. This is taken in December 1944. And she does the same church. You see these guys here, this armored infantry, they were from your combat command, and recognize any of the buildings. And he goes like, nope. I'm saying, oh, yeah, long, like, it's early in the day. So next place, there's a curve in the road, there's a little bridgehead, there's a barn down there, it hasn't changed, and there's photos of the tanks. Combat Command, I think it was Combat Command A or something like that. And I said, listen, you probably, and he goes, no. And that went on.
Womp, womp, womp.
Every time. Next place. You see this farmhouse, the old World War I monument is still here, the train tracks, and these are your guys. You see the patch on the shoulder, that's your unit? No. And I was like about to give up. And we were at the end of the day, and I said, okay, one more shot of this really big photo. I said, this is going to be my moment. He must recognize this. There's no way, because this is an iconic photo. He must know. And I take him with his family to that spot, and I said, I want to show you one more photo. They just, kid, leave it there. I was in a goddamn tank all bloody day. I couldn't see shit. And I was like, God. He couldn't see anything. He probably was there, but he
doesn't block about yay big.
So these are these little mistakes that you do. I mean,
see, you should have said that at the beginning of the day, and then that would have kind of opened up the conversation for something else. But yeah, but they would never compromise. Most of them wouldn't compromise. You had to meet them in their side of the pub, so to speak. They weren't going to come out to meet you. You had to find the common ground. And I would judge it by the way they'd look at you at the beginning of the day, and you think, "Oh God, he hates me already." He hates the way I sound. He hates the fact
British. I can't understand a word he's saying.
You're a Belgie. I'm a limey. And you're starting at a negative point. You've already been scored a -10 for just walking in the door, not being American.
And then especially if you have created that situation that they don't like you yourself. I mean, to give you an example, I remember doing a tour that was even before Band of Brothers and stuff. And I was taking people around in Bastogne, but these were kind of, yeah, I was 20, 21 years old, and I wanted to show them the plaque dedicated to Renee Lemaire. Yeah, we did the nurse depicted, portrayed by Lucy John. Um, and I was thinking some Americans there was very proud. I was telling the story, who she was, how she was killed. And then I showed her the like, and I ended my presentation by telling them, and this is why I really believe that she deserves the plague.
Oh.
Oh,
I meant plaque, but
yeah, yeah.
Good intentions.
yes. Oh, I could seem like, huh? Yeah, the plague, she deserves the plague.
Even when they say to
Poor
you,
guy.
so what
And
do you
then they
think of
tap on my
politics
shoulder
right
like that evening, like, it's plaque.
back? It's when they say to you, so what do you think of the political situation right now? And I go, well, okay. Do you want me to really answer that? Or do you want me to
You
say
want me to
what
be
you
honest?
want me to say? Because I may agree with you, or I may have a counterpoint of view. So we can either just ignore that you asked this question and carry on talking about the war, or we can proceed. But the fact is, I may not agree with you. They go, oh yeah. Sometimes they go, oh, yeah, well, let's not talk about it now. So that might be, as you said. I think you said to me, Reg, no politics, no religion, no sex. That's the thing.
Yep.
The three things
In
not
that
to talk
order.
about. In order. Yeah. Anyway,
Keep money out of it too.
keep money
about
out of it. Yeah.
Those are the big ones. But guys, it's been a joy. I
Yeah,
think you're
let's do a
right.
part two. Let's
Yeah,
do a
Yeah,
part
we
two.
should, we should
Gotta
definitely
have
do a
to.
part two.
All right, send me your schedules and I'll put something together. Woody, I know
Good,
you're
good.
busy. You're recording like all the time. Reg, you're in your downtime between seasons, I think
Well,
you
I got
told
other
me.
stuff, going
Yeah,
on. So
you got things going on. Don't worry, we're going to drop links for Reg's Battlefield Experience tours. If you want to book a tour with him, he's top notch. If you want to tour with Woody, one or two a year maybe, and they're very focused tours. But you can always catch him on his World War II TV. Just fantastic guests, fantastic content. I can say that I've been on it a couple of times and I've always enjoyed it. And he's a great host, and he's always bringing new topics to the fore. You will not waste time checking out his channel. So thanks everybody for
Cheers.
dropping in, and thanks gents for taking time out of your nice Saturday here. We're about to get walloped on the East Coast of the United States by
Yeah.
snowstorm, so we're going to be hunkering down soon. I think I'm running low on booze, so I might have to take a run out. But anyway, thanks everyone again, and I'll have the links in the description. Take care. Bye, guys.
Yeah.